All right. Welcome. Hello. You are in the right place if you're here for the panel, How Toastmasters Has Helped Me Professionally, a panel about the intersection between two important parts of many of our lives at least, the personal improvement and confidence that comes from Toastmasters, as well as the deep expertise, professional networks, and healthy practices, or maybe not so healthy practices, that we've established as working people. My name is Elise Thorsen. I'm a Toastmaster as of 2020, and I'm a working person. And I joined Toastmasters specifically to learn how to be a better working person, to learn how to show up better at meetings. And it turns out that I ended up reaping far greater dividends than just meetings. I learned what a gift it is to show up and take up space to be a leader to other people when they need that. It makes a very big difference to both my colleagues and to myself that I learned that confidence through Toastmasters. That's it for my professional development spiel. I'm actually looking forward very much to hearing from our four panelists who are representative of work in government, in nonprofits, in education and technology, and in work and in owning their own business. I'm sorry about that. I'd like to briefly introduce them and then lay out our format for the evening. Anne Doucette in government, DTM, joined Toastmasters through Speechcraft in September 2016 at the suggestion of her manager. She was looking for ways to improve her confidence at work. For the past 1.5 years now, Anne is a manager within the federal government of Canada and is responsible for an $80 million budget. She works with her team to gather information from a variety of sources, and she has learned to succinctly provide verbal and/or written briefings to senior management. I'm looking forward to learning more about this, even more about this in our talks. Now I've got it. Jenny Theriault is the executive director at Caregivers Nova Scotia, a small provincial nonprofit organization dedicated to serving and supporting family and friend caregivers across the province. Her education background is in gerontology, and she has worked in community programming for all of her career. Andrew Burke, CC, we'll find out what that means, is an independent software developer, digital artist, and occasional entrepreneur from Halifax, Nova Scotia. He has been a Toastmaster since 2016, and you might remember that he placed third in the District 45 International Speech Competition in 2019. And our final panelist is Marsha Rogowski, a principal software engineer at Southern New Hampshire University. She has worked as a software engineer for over 25 years, the last 10 in higher education. She is also an adjunct instructor teaching various information technology classes. She has been a member of Toastmasters for 8 years, and a charter member and the current president of Penman Toastmasters, as well as an advanced club member of Amaskeg Better Communicators. And she served as Area 16 Director and Division. All of these people have served at great length in Toastmasters. I'm sorry for not gathering all this together. And we are going to have much more opportunity to get to know these Toastmasters over the course of the next hour or so. And so I'm going to move on to our format. What I'd like to do is provide one question to each of the panelists in a different order, calling on people in a different order over each question. For the most part, I'm thinking 2 to 3 minutes per question with, if we don't mind, Madam Timer, red at the time limit. We don't need to do green, yellow, red, just red. So people have a chance to know that they should wrap up, but not have to worry too much about timing. This is about a conversation, a little bit of an informal back and forth. And I'd like to leave room at the end of the at the end of the hour for questions from the audience if they have them, or we can continue talking with each other in an even more informal format as that seems appropriate. Any questions, especially from the panelists, before we move on?
Who's the timer, just so I know who to keep an eye on? Okay, perfect, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much to Crystal for being our timer tonight. And thank you for also one last thank you. Thank you to Jenny for organizing this panel and doing really all of the hard lifting. I'm the face tonight, but Jenny was the organizer of everything behind the scenes. Much appreciation to you. All right, going to start out with our first question. It's completely unanticipated. I'd like you to tell us a bit about what you do at work and how Toastmasters has helped you professionally. And I'd like to start out with Andrew.
Hi there. I've got maybe a slightly weirder thing to try to describe than maybe some of the other folks. So here I go. I'm an independent software developer, so I mostly work on my own building stuff, often for clients, but I often do my own kinds of projects. I've worked with government agencies and big businesses and little arts groups and theater companies and done some of my own independent things over the years. So one of the things that's really big, especially if you're an independent developer, is to try to make a name for yourself. And one of the big ways that that works in this field is speaking at conferences. So, you want to be not just, it's easy as a software developer to sit in a cubicle and become a React developer, a Lotus Notes developer, whatever, over the years of all the different things I've worked on over the years. But what you want to become, really, in the way you actually make a much better living and everything, is to become the software developer. You want to be, they want to get the Andrew, they want to get that, the person they saw at the thing. And there's a whole industry of conferences all out there that are always looking for speakers. But it's not a kind of business you can make money at necessarily, because there's so much demand for so many speakers, so much supply of speakers out there that it's, but at least you can usually get to go to the conference. They'll cover your costs, the travel and hotel usually, hopefully, but at least the conference ticket. And that's been a great way for someone who's independent, who doesn't have like a big corporate budget behind them, to at least be able to attend some of these conferences and go to things. So if that's the main thing, is Toastmasters has really helped me. I'd done a little bit of conference talks, some conference talks previously before I got into Toastmasters. The Toastmasters really helped me get much more experience speaking and doing things in front of a crowd and polishing things up and getting going and giving a proper speech and really working on polishing them, especially when I started working in the competitions. Really gave me a chance to really chew on something and really work it out. And that's definitely been a huge impact for me. And it's definitely improved my speaking skills and really brought things forward. And I know it's sort of a cliche, people get into Toastmasters for many different things, but for me, often the speaking was the big front and center. It's also been a great way to get to know people in town and get some social contact, especially over the last few years, where seeing people has sometimes been difficult with everything going on. And the conference world sort of went to pieces and then sort of has been reassembling itself a little bit. But that's been sort of my experience in that. And just trying to think what else. Even just doing virtual things through Toastmasters as well, getting really good at using Zoom on a weekly basis, on a regular basis, for presentations, and how to mix and match slides and do all that kind of thing has been extremely useful for whenever I have another event that I got to do virtually. I can just slap into that quickly, and I know how to manage all the different aspects. And I even made some YouTube videos that sort of covered some of that kind of stuff, that some of that kind of went a little bit viral, which is another side of presenting and being a developer and getting your name out there as well, which also Toastmasters has been super helpful for. But I see I am in red now, so I'm going to let this go. And I wish more panel discussions out there in the world had a timer, I have to say. Can I just say, one of the things I love about Toastmasters is we are on schedule. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. There are some immediate thoughts that come to mind about managing speaking schedules and just manage the sheer amount of organization that goes into speaking that we all know as Toastmasters. That I'm keen to get back to at some point in the near future. But for now, let us speak with Anne.
Hi, everyone. As Elise mentioned, I work for the Canadian federal government at Veterans Affairs Canada. I am a manager and I have a team of 2 reporting to me, and I manage a budget of $80 million. We manage the budget for provincially run but federally funded outpatients operational stress injury clinics across Canada. And therefore, veterans, serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and for serving and former members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and their family. Toastmasters has given me the ability to run effective meetings, to present information succinctly to senior managers, both written and verbally, on a daily basis. We have sometimes clinics will come to us looking for budget modifications because they want us to approve a budget, but we need to pull information from them. So I need to know how to speak to them and be very clear with the information that I'm looking for, that I need them to present. And then we have to do some research and be able to gather all the pertinent information that I need. And it could be pages upon pages of information sometimes. And we need to be able to succinctly take the key points. And I report to a director. We also have another director who manages the clinical side of the clinics. So I often have to brief with the 2 of them. They have busy schedules. They don't have time to read through reports and whatnot. So I have to be able to take take out the pertinent information that I need and to brief them, and then to be able to offer a recommendation. I'm not the one who makes the decisions, but I am one who does the recommendation. So if I am making a recommendation, I also have to have backing in order to support my recommendation. So I've worked really hard in being able to become better at that. I know some of the previous occupations I've done is I've also been a trainer, training people on a web portal for our clients to communicate with the department. And I remember seeing a former colleague I bumped into her in the hallway at lunchtime, and we were talking, and she said, "Do you want to go on an assignment and come work with me?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then she says, "We'll be in touch." We walked away, and then I'm like, "Uh-oh, that means training. That means me presenting information on a piece of software that I don't know." But I was excited about the opportunity to travel and the opportunity to work with her, that the part about me actually training came after I had already said, yes, I was interested. And I'm like, uh-oh. Ended up being so much fun. But Toastmasters gave me the courage to say yes and give it a try.
I'm hearing wonderful things about how to use time effectively and infect others through confidence, as well as get points across quickly or effectively. All right. You might notice that I'm going in alphabetical order right now. Now let's go to Jenny.
Elise. Hi, everyone. So as Elise said, I work for a small nonprofit organization. It's called Caregivers Nova Scotia. So what we do there is we support family and friend caregivers. And so we do that in a few ways. We provide support to caregivers. We provide information and resources. We'll refer caregivers to different supports in the community. We provide education, some educational webinars and workshops, and then also advocacy. We do a lot of advocacy for caregivers in the community and around the province. So for me, I actually joined Toastmasters. So back up for a second. So I'm the executive director there. We have 10 staff. And I actually joined Toastmasters before I took on this job. And I actually credit Toastmasters for my confidence to take on this job, actually, because I had been working in community programming. I wasn't in any kind of leadership positions. So when I first joined this organization, actually, I was in a coordinator position, and this role opened, and I took on an interim position as the interim director. And I had been attending Toastmasters all of that time. And when this job opened up, I thought, why can't I do it? Why can't I take on this role? And so Toastmasters definitely helped me build that confidence to be able to do that and to be willing to say yes. So I specifically wanted to talk about advocacy because that is definitely a big part of my role specifically. Like, I manage 10 people. And so truly a lot of what I do day to day, honestly, is email. I am constantly just replying to emails and answering phone calls. But in terms of what do I actually do, a lot of is kind of that higher level advocacy. So when we get caregivers who have issues with healthcare, or if they have looking for home care, or if something's going on with a policy that through seniors and long-term care here in Nova Scotia, those are the things when I need to connect. I might be connecting with a manager in continuing care, or I might be connecting with someone through the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. And so those are things that I need confidence to be able to do. And also, I think even just being able to express myself in a way that I want, and to be able to clearly articulate what the issue is for the caregiver, and trying to get those resources and those responses, and trying to be there for caregivers. That's a big part of what I do. And Toastmasters has certainly helped me in all of those areas. So I think, oh, that's great. That'll be good for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm sensing a bit of a through line of confidence and also presenting the things that we're really good at, or the things that we know a lot about, in ways that are really accessible to other people, that convince and persuade others. Maybe I should have waited to find that through line until Marsha's spoken. I'm looking forward to seeing what Marsha has to say.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my window. It was skewed off and the mute button was not actually accessible, and I was trying to figure out quickly, how do I move it back into view? But I am in technology, so this should not be an issue for me. I write software. I should be able to use it. That has nothing to do with Toastmasters at this point. But moving on, I am a software engineer. And by natural traits, don't want to talk to a lot of people. But I was approached by a fellow person in IT who was more of a business analyst, project manager, the talky people, who had been in Toastmasters before and wanted to get a club going at Southern New Hampshire University, where I am. And as a person who likes rules and likes to follow them, at this time it sounded more like you should do this as opposed to never mind, right? It sounded like this is a must. So I ended up going to the open house and working with a bunch of people to get the club started, all because I thought that communicating better would be good for me, because I don't talk to a lot of people, so how am I going to improve communicating? And if I really wanted to go anywhere in my career, you have to learn how to convey messages to people, because if I'm going to rise the ranks of software engineer, You have people then under you that are relying on you to give them information. That was my journey into Toastmasters, to that aspect of it. I also ended up being an adjunct instructor. I think that was shortly after I joined Toastmasters, and found that this was really helping me connect to the students. So not only was I working in the business side with staff, now I have students I have to talk to. And if you know anything about Southern New Hampshire University, we do have a nice, smallish campus, but then we have the very large population of online students, which is where I was teaching. So everything is virtual. It's written communication, which I thought that was okay. You know, I don't have to actually talk to you, which is what I hated. Do you want me to call somebody? No, I don't want to call anybody. But this also, I found the byproduct was my written communication to these poor online students who were not grasping the material was greatly improved as well. And occasionally one would ask, can we meet on Zoom or something? I'd grit my teeth and I'd say, yeah, we can do that. And you know what? It turns out really well every time, even though a little taken aback by having it be that personal. Thank you.
That was really beautiful because it's not just about our own progress, but it's about enabling the people who depend on you to progress and meeting them where their needs are, communication wise, and not letting our own hangups get in the way. All around, I'm very impressed with how much Toastmasters seems to be a part of translating the things that we know deeply as professionals and experts to many different audiences, from students to other offices to your potential customers, your potential or your colleagues. All of this is a value to Toastmasters that I'm hearing so far in this panel. The next question is going to be a little bit more specific to how to make Toastmasters work when we're working. Sometimes I feel as though it can be difficult to bring content or bring experiences from work into Toastmasters, and you have to go looking for other things to do projects about or to talk about during table topics, say. And I'm wondering if you could offer a specific example of when you were conscious about applying Toastmasters principles or techniques at work, or bringing work to Toastmasters projects, especially a Pathways project if it's been directly related to a work issue. And so I'm going to start with Jenny this time.
Thanks, Elise. I love this question. I have some very good examples, I think, of this. So one of the things that I've had to do, and I hear you, Marcia, I'm an introvert through and through, is I literally had to do a news interview on the news, which is was very scary. I've also done a couple of radio interviews and also like a news interview via Zoom. But I even went to the studio once to do this interview. And those are very concrete examples where I've taken everything I learned from Toastmasters and applied that while I was there. Albert, I've used some of the techniques you gave me about beating my jitters. And yes, and I was able to speak. I had folks talk to me later after the interviews were over, when I'm in my overthinking spiral, and say like, oh, you didn't use any filler words during that interview. And I think, how was that possible? Right, Toastmasters. So that's one definite example of where I've translated it Absolutely. But also, I've actually, one of the questions Elise said to us was, had we ever used a project in our work and I actually have. So one of the projects I've done is prepare to speak professionally. I think it's a level 5 project. And we have an annual general meeting every year where I have to give a report about what we've done for the whole year. And I've used that project to give that presentation. And interestingly, when I did that, I asked a couple of my staff members to evaluate me. And I think I would highly recommend having non-Toastmasters evaluate you once or twice, because they're just seeing that evaluation for the first time. They give a different type of feedback than we all do, we all do as seasoned Toastmasters who have heard the evaluations. So that was a great experience for me too, getting that feedback from them and having staff members understand that process of evaluation as well. So I love that question. Thank you, Elise.
I love it's a success story for Pathways. Thank you. Andrew, do you have any experience bringing Toastmasters into work?
Certainly, both ways. Similarly, I've definitely used Pathways projects as a way to practice big speeches I've had coming up. I did manage to a few years ago managed to get a keynote speech opportunity, and I broke that down into like 4 different, because it was a half hour, so I broke that down into 4 or 5 little parts, which I figured out ways to turn those into Pathways ones, body language and vocal variety, and I was able to sort of focus those on each one, which is great. So I mean, it's good for that. But besides the speaking part, I mean, obviously I joined Toastmasters to get better at the speaking, but definitely all of the other aspects of it, which I've always found surprising, but I guess I shouldn't, because that's what a lot of us get out of Toastmasters is the evaluations and the leadership skills. I mostly work on my own, or mostly deal with sort of peers and just sort of feedback and sort of let's try to work on this, whatever. But in the last year or two, I've started actually having to delegate to sort of more junior people. We've brought other people in to help do some of the more busy work on some of these projects, and I have to evaluate their work, and it's not something I'm used to. And so it's been very interesting to do that. But I'm also definitely doing Toastmasters evaluations, the compliment sandwich, the way to find something constructive, a way to constructively explain why they maybe want to approach it in a different way, and all that kind of thing has been certainly super useful. Something I did not expect would become something that I would take from Toastmasters. I thought it would just improve my speaking, but it turned out it's actually improved a lot of my other kinds of delegating and evaluation. And just doubling with Jenny's note about being on the news, yeah, once or twice that's happened, and I've been able to bring my especially table topics experience to trying not to sound like a complete idiot on the morning news. I also once or twice just got one of those man in the street, they get the camera on the corner of the street or at Argyle or whatever, and they sort of buttonhole people to try to get your opinion about something. And I completely just go straight into table topics mode. That's happened like twice since I did Toastmasters. But I'm like, well, I have to tell you let me explain that, it's very just pop right into table topics. So it's nice to have these sort of skills that we've been building experience in, on a weekly basis or a regular basis that we can now bring out when we need to. And it's been great for professional and personal kinds of reasons as well.
Love it. Just table topics. It is exactly what I go to for every single short off the cuff requirement to speak, or requirement to speak off the cuff. Marcia, I'm curious about your experience bringing Toastmasters into work.
I have 2 specific areas. One I already alluded to was correspondence. So I need to talk to a lot of people, usually through email. And I have found that I have better correspondence skills now. And I want to say that these came about by taking on leadership roles in Toastmasters. So even though we practice speaking, when you start taking on leadership roles and now you're responsible for disseminating information or communicating with people or answering questions, it really helped me see, even at work, what the email correspondence were. Somebody would send me some information and I would just let it sit. I'm like, oh, Toastmasters has taught me that maybe I should reply and say, yes, message received at the very minimum, which, as an engineer, I was like, yep, got it. Oh, I have to tell you I got it? Oh. So that was my baseline experience of just day-to-day interactions with people. The bigger thing, and I'm going to piggyback off of Andrew's idea about conferences a little bit, is that we had a vendor that I worked very close with their software for. And they had a conference every year, which meant travel to another fun city and hang out and whatever. And my boss was never picking me to go. I was low man on the totem pole. There was one person who was a really great person who got to go every year, and rightly so. And then other people that would alternate in and out, and I never got to go. I put my Toastmaster hat on, and when I got the email that said request for proposals, I submitted a proposal for to speak. And if you did 2 of these presentations, you got to go for free. So I submitted 2 proposals. 2 proposals were accepted. And I said to my boss, look, I'm presenting at the conference and you don't have to pay for me to go other than airfare and hotel. And I was able to go to the conference. To bring it full circle, I did practice that speech in my club on some of my projects. They may not have been pathways at the time, but they were still projects in the book. And that was challenging because none of the people in my club were software engineers. They had no idea about the vendor and what I was talking about. Got a lot of interesting feedback, which I wasn't sure what to do with because I knew I was going to be talking to technical people. But that's how I brought it full circle, was using my Toastmaster confidence to tell my boss, look what I've done. And went to my very first conference.
That audience awareness is probably the biggest hitch when trying to present work topics in Toastmasters. But I think there's a great value to even practicing, even if the feedback is not going to be as tailored as what is perhaps it often is when it's a more accessible topic. Kudos to you, Marcia. And now, finally, Anne, how have you used Toastmasters tools at work?
It took me a while to think of something, but then I realized there are many tools and projects that helped me in my work. There is one project that I used, as has been mentioned already, the Prepare to Speak Professionally. Crystal also works at Veterans Affairs, and when I was in that training program, I used to Prepare to Speak Professionally when I was doing some training, and Crystal provided me with a written evaluation because she was on the MS Teams calls. So there. Some of the other tools or projects that have helped me is the active listening, because when I was in that role, we had the opportunity prior to COVID to travel, and I ended up going to a military base in Alberta, and there was a seminar for military personnel who were transitioning or getting ready to transition to civilian life. So it was kind of all about what is out there for them. And so, of course, there was representatives from Veterans Affairs Canada, but we were there to talk about the web portal. And it was just listening to them, listening to their frustration, listening to what they were trying to do, trying to understand the portal, and then being able to show them what was new with the portal. So I really enjoyed that. Also, there was an opportunity for me to attend a conference. It was a military health and health forum. I do not have a health background. I was there as a writer of directives and guidelines, so it was a bit overwhelming, but I used the tips and tricks in the networking path to be able to network because it was an opportunity to meet people and to connect. So that was really interesting there. And I think the projects that have most impacted me over the years is the understanding your communication and your leadership styles. Those two projects, because I am not a direct person. I am not an assertive person. And over the years, I am becoming more assertive and more direct in my communication. And in my current role with the operational stress injury clinics, I'm dealing with 14 or 15 clinic managers across the country, and I have to adjust how I communicate with them depending on who they are and how like our relationship. And there are some of them I have to be a little bit more direct with, and that takes a lot out of me. I am very much an introvert. I want everyone to get along. I don't like conflict. And so I find it's very difficult for me to be direct, especially if I have to go to them and say, I need you to give me this. And they may argue and say, well, blah, 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 blah. I have to be like direct and say, no, no, this will not get approved if you do not give me this. So that has been a big learning curve for me, but it's been something that I find those projects has really helped me understand my communication and my leadership style and have the ability to modify and grow from it and modify and become a more well-rounded communicator and leader.
That is brilliant. I love how many pathways projects were brought up, and I should have known that Anne would have a lot of pathways project ideas because she's completed level 5 and 10 paths.
As of Wednesday, I'll have completed. No, I did. As of Saturday, I completed number 10. I have
11
a
paths.
reflective. I have a to reflect on your paths to do.
Which is to say, go to Anne if you need to brainstorm ways of bringing your pathways projects into work. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I would like to keep us moving along. One or two more questions before we go to the audience. This is a bit more on the life side. If we talk about work-life balance or work Toastmasters balance, there isn't any life, right? How Toastmasters can be kind of challenging to keep up with when you're busy or you're building a career. I think that anytime that I recommend Toastmasters to a junior colleague, they pick it up and then they say, but I'm very busy. How did you get over that hurdle and keep that personal development through Toastmasters as a priority as you were doing a lot of other things in your lives between work and life plus Toastmasters? Let's start with Marcia this time.
Yes, the work-life Toastmaster balance. Been through that when I was serving on the team. And for me, yes, it's about priorities. Toastmasters is important to me, so it ends up higher on the list, which means that the capacity for Toastmasters sometimes is affected in terms of pathways versus other commitments. I know that I have a tendency sometimes to overcommit. I am learning the word no because, like Anne, I'm a people pleaser. I don't want anybody to be upset. So Toastmasters is helping me say no at times. But that said, I throw myself in and then have to figure out how I can balance all of that, which means that while I was area director and struggling with that, I didn't do a lot of pathway projects. Should have done more, but had other things taking up my time. So it ended up being more of a balancing act within Toastmasters than outside of it, because I made Toastmasters the priority and just had to tone down what I was doing, replacing it with certain commitments versus others. So yes, my personal Toastmaster growth, I want to say, felt like it was stagnated for a while, But then when I was done doing the leadership, and even though my pathway hadn't progressed much, I realized, yeah, it hadn't stagnated. I just didn't complete pathways projects as fast as I wanted to. I actually learned a lot of stuff. And that meant, like tonight, carving out an hour or so of my evening and putting other stuff aside and figuring out how to work that all in. So takeout, instead of cooking. There's always ways to allocate the time when it's important. And I've seen so many people decide that Toastmasters wasn't important enough to carve out that time. So I'm hoping that I've answered your question. I haven't really given you strategies other than make it a priority, carve out the time, and adjust some of your other commitments to make them all work. And might mean staying up a little later one night if, sleep isn't a top priority for you. And I think I'll end it there.
Oh, the learning to say no, Marcia, is you have so many opportunities to learn that in Toastmasters. So many tests of your abilities. That very helpful. Thank you very much. Let's say Anne. Anne.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Marcia said because I totally agree with it. So I won't repeat everything that she says, but something else for me was I took it as an opportunity, or I saw it as an opportunity to invest in myself. I saw the benefits of what Toastmasters did. I was shy, lacking in self-confidence on some things, and all the skills that I was learning in Toastmasters, I could see how it was working and how it was helping me at work. So I took it in as an opportunity to invest in myself. And instead of sitting on the couch and watching TV for hours on end, I worked on pathways and I worked on projects and my speeches. I did those leadership roles. I as well was on the leadership, and sometimes there was no work-life balance. But I took it on as, okay, it's a year. I've committed to a year. I'm learning. I'm growing from this. I attended webinars such as this. Of course, there's nights that I binge watch TV. I always have a book on my phone. I'm always reading. So I made the time to try to find that work-life balance. It wasn't always there, but I saw it as an investment of myself. And you find it, I can't speak today. When you look at it as an investment in yourself, it becomes a little bit easier to do because you can see it's me time, right? And for me with COVID as well, I started working from home. My husband went out to work, and it I really grew my community this way because I got to connect with, I think, most of you on the Zoom call. I've met you through because of Zoom and because of COVID. And some of you, we've been roomies at the conference and we've hung out here and there, and I've had the opportunity to build my community. So there's that as well, right? So it's just a wonderful opportunity to invest in yourself and to take into consideration what really matters to you and what can really help you. Anyways, I feel like I've gone on a little tangent, but a little off. But anyways, that's my answer, is to being able to invest in myself in however way.
It is a little bit of a, thank you very much, Anne. It is a little bit of a difference from Toastmasters stealing me time to Toastmasters becoming your me time. It is a way to really put yourself first. I'd love to know what Jenny does to maintain Toastmasters work-life balance. 3 ways.
Honestly, for me, Toastmasters actually, I would say, has become a non-negotiable for me. Like it it's the most important professional development I do. And two things, well, one thing that has helped tremendously is that I attend a 1 hour lunchtime meeting. So it's not hard for me to make it to that. It's part of my schedule. All of my staff know Wednesdays at lunchtime, I'm in a Toastmasters meeting. It's a regular part of my schedule. It's in my calendar. Everyone knows I always attend. So that's helped tremendously. I will say, well, I joined Toastmasters in 2018, and the club that I joined met in person at that time. I was part of Toastmasters for about a year and a half, and I had to leave that club because I changed jobs and I wasn't able to make it to that club in person. And then over COVID, the club moved to a virtual club. And then they were like, "Hey, Jenny, we're virtual now. Can you come again?" And I said, "Yes, I can." And so since that time, our club has just decided to stay online. And like I said, it's a Wednesday 1 hour lunchtime meeting that is not hard to fit into my day or my week. And again, because it's a non-negotiable for me, I make it happen. But what I did notice during that time when I did leave Toastmasters is I did lose some of the skills that I had acquired when I first joined Toastmasters. And even I notice in the summertime, I don't know if any of you, if your clubs have less meetings in the summertime or completely shut down for the summer, I get rusty in even just in 2 months from the summer. If I'm not attending meetings, I hear more filler words that I'm using, or I don't do as well at those impromptu speaking opportunities. So I've made it a priority for me, just like everyone said. And again, if you're having trouble fitting it in, consider a lunchtime meeting.
I taking that lunchtime meeting to heart, that advice to heart very much. Andrew, you have a special situation where you have to really manage your own time really quite rigorously. I'm curious to know about your experience
Well,
managing that balance.
yeah, as just like Jenny, I also do lunchtime meeting at, like for 1 hour. It's on Thursdays, provincially speaking, and as a freelance software person, I have my own little office, but it's basically just me. And as I'm sure Marcia can appreciate, you sometimes just spend your entire day looking at a screen, typing code in, and you only ever talk to a computer, and you sort of get a little square-eyed after a while. So Thursdays are actually sort of my day to sort of get out and see people, and I have a friend who works in the same sort of complex as our Toastmasters meeting, and there's a food court downstairs, and so we often meet for lunch before Toastmasters, and then sometimes I'll meet up with some other friends since I'm downtown afterwards. So it's actually my chance to socialize. So I mix. It's my chance to sort of do some FaceTime with people in a more low-key way, while also engaging in sort of learning and Toastmaster things, and yeah, it just actually the balance, as Marcia was talking about, the balance of work and life, and how you figure out how to fit all those things together, and the Toastmasters on top of that. Um, I'm certainly the opposite end of, I think, Andrew said, in terms of finishing pathways. The CC that in my bio is competent communicator, which is the pre-pathways achievement, which is the only level I've gotten to. I'm very close. I think I'm one unit away from finishing my first pathway, but I always try to make it to the meetings, but usually I might just be a timer, or maybe an evaluator or something that doesn't take a lot of pre-prep to do. But I always at least try to make it, even if I can't necessarily find the time to prepare a speech, because obviously preparing speeches takes a lot of time and effort and energy away from the time that you might have otherwise. But we all have different things. I'm also regularly doing Duolingo on my phone. I'm trying to learn to play guitar, and I've also got various other side projects, and a home life and all sorts of things like that. So we're always juggling. And yeah, with the freelancing, it's a bit like being at school. You sort of have to make your own schedule and figure out when you're going to go to class and when you're going to dig in and read those books and write those papers. The same kind of idea, but instead of class, it's Toastmasters, which is much more fun. But I had actually previously been, before I joined Provincially Speaking, I was at another. I tried out another Toastmasters club that was every other Monday evening for 2 hours or something like that, from 6 till 8 or whatever, 7 till 9, and it just did not work for me at all. And And then I found community speaking was just fit much better, and to be honest, had more fun people, I think. So, hi Sherry. And anyway, so that's sort of the what's worked for me is to have a like a tight 1 hour, and especially provincially speaking, they keep it really tightly 1 hour because everyone's got work to do right afterwards. So it keeps a really tight ship, which is always nice. And there I am red, so I'm going to keep that going.
Well, if anybody would like to learn more, whatever Andrew's final statements were, I think that we are ready to open up to questions from the audience if you have any. I have a couple more questions if you don't have any, but I'd love to know how this has been, what impression this has been making on you and what reactions you're getting. Just come off mute, I suppose.
Are you asking me?
No,
Are
anybody.
you asking other people?
I'm asking our audience. We have
Sorry.
5 audience members here who perhaps have thoughts that they'd like to share.
I was having that doubt of, did I miss something?
Oh no, you're welcome to speak too, Marcia, if you want to respond to somebody, but Albert's went off mute.
It's very rare to see me quiet for so long, so it needs to be broken. I'm listening to all of your stories, and I can actually visualize a lot of what you've been saying. And my first thought is, this would be a really good video as a VPPR and possibly a VPM to show to members that are kind of struggling, not sure, what exactly am I going to get out of this Toastmasters? This is a really good example of talking to people in diverse professions and getting a sense of the common themes of how it helps. Because I think a lot of people, well, I know one person who's no longer in Toastmasters who got very involved when she was. I remember when she was saying that she was approaching people and saying, why aren't you coming to Toastmasters? We miss you. The person said, well, I'm not getting anything out of it. And her thought was, well, you actually have to put something in it to get something out of it. And I think this is a good opportunity. Just even listening to, and Anne is right, when you're taking on leadership positions, life balance becomes kind of imbalance. But that's all right. You learn to deal with the bump and the grind that sometimes comes with tight deadlines and work with others. I just think this is a really good promotional tool for Toastmasters. And Tom, hint, hint, this is definitely something that I think in terms of club growth, it needs to be pushed because I think this is you're all very eloquent. You've articulated yourselves well, which shows the beauty of Toastmasters. And I'm not the easiest person to keep engaged, but I was pretty engaged for most. I guess I shouldn't admit that there might have been a percentage of time that my mind went off, but no, for the most part, I was pretty engaged. And so thank you for that. I'm trying to find my unmute button, my mute button.
Marcia hit it.
Oh, thank you so much to this panelists. This is a big eye opener. I would say I enjoyed every bit of this conversation and I'm so inspired. So thank you everyone. And like the last person said, this is one video to share and show to other guests and people that would like to join Toastmaster. It's really very, very inspiring for me. Thank you all of you for sharing tonight. Thank you.
It makes a big difference that you were here, Queen. Tom, did you go off mute for a reason?
Well, Albert stole my thunder, but I did want to just add one thing. I love hearing the stories about where you were and now where you are and hopefully you'll keep going and improving. That is such a key thing, because I think we've all been there when somebody new is in Toastmasters or coming to a meeting either online or in person. It's a scary situation. But I think the more that we share for that new person, we've been there. We were you. And then through this organization, we've grown. So kudos to everybody.
We had one final question that we didn't have time to get to in my personal agenda, but I'm kind of curious because I think people prepared for it. So if we could get a 1 minute maximum lightning round, starting with Anne, Jenny, Marcia, Andrew in order here. What is one piece of advice to other Toastmasters who are looking to improve their professional life?
Say yes. When opportunities arise to try something new, to be part of a committee, say yes. You never know where it will lead you. Also, to work the Toastmasters program, take on meeting roles, work the projects, do speeches, do table topics. It's a safe place to learn and grow, and you never know where something from a meeting or from Toastmasters, from Pathways, can help you in your professional life. We mentioned it earlier this evening, table topics, the impromptu speaking has given us the ability to be able to answer questions off the cuff. That is something that we learned through Toastmasters. Why not always take on the opportunity to speak during a meeting? So to me, it's say yes to whatever opportunities arise.
My one piece of advice is to be an area director for a year. I learned so much in that 1 year as an area director. It's unbelievable. I loved visiting other clubs. I jumped way out of my comfort zone when I did that. I had never even visited other clubs. I had to give speeches at other clubs, which also felt like a huge jump out of the comfort zone. And I had such an amazing experience as an area director, and my personal growth and development in that 1 year is invaluable to me. I would highly recommend anyone to do that at least once or again. I had a great time. Maybe in the future I may do it again. We'll see. No, not committing to anything, but I would highly recommend anyone do that once, become an area director.
I'm next, right? I was going to say volunteer for a leadership role. I wasn't going to be as specific as Jenny, but even if you start just at your club level, getting that exposure of what it means to be a leader, because I feel like that was where I had my most area of growth. And it was a little bit of leadership, but it also strengthened my communication because I had to. And I know everybody loves the area director role, and I really didn't like it. I enjoyed the people I met. I did not enjoy going to other clubs to try to give speeches. I had the lack of comfort with the lack of knowledge of the people that I was there with. I could do it now, though, because I know them now. I enjoyed my division director role more so, which I think not everybody says, because, well, I've never been normal or average. So that for me was my greatest experience, just in terms of what I was doing and what I was learning. And yeah, that's a stepping stone that people have to get up to. So just start small, pick a leadership role, and go from there.
I think I'm next, right? Is that it? Okay. So that's it. Yeah, for me, I tried a little bit of the leadership role thing, but it hasn't quite been my thing. But that's everyone's. I think the nice thing about Toastmasters is there's many different pathways you can take through the organization and through the different ways of achievement through Toastmasters. And for me, especially as I think just talking about Duolingo or learning guitar or whatever, I think one of the great things with Toastmasters is you get regular practice. So, you know, if you show up, go to the meetings, even if you haven't picked anything and you haven't given a speech in a while, at least you're going there, you're going to get called for table topics, you're going to be the timer or something like that, or at least, you know, the general evaluator or eventually the Toastmaster, all these kinds of roles. It's just you're getting the regular practice and you're building up, you know, in the guitar you have to keep playing to keep your, you know, the edges of your fingers kind of toughened, otherwise you lose the strength and the calluses. So it's really important to keep going, and as I think Jenny was saying, when she hasn't done it for a while, she really starts to find herself using these filler words again and all that kind of thing. So I think just continue to keep showing up. It's remarkable how much power there is. That's Samson, by the way. Hi, Samson. It's about time for his snacks. It's no, I'm totally distracted. You see, they should bring cats into the Toastmasters meetings and have you try to give your speech while people are doing your well, cats are running around. Anyhow, keep showing up and build a regular practice is a great way to build up any skill, and especially speaking. So that's my thing. Keep showing up. It's remarkable what you can build over time by showing up.
Keep showing up like your cat.
Yes. Brilliant words of wisdom to end this panel on. We are at time. I am so glad to have learned from our panelists. Thank you very much again to Jenny for organizing this. Thank you to Crystal for stepping up as timer at the last minute. And thank you all for attending and sharing your thoughts. Please have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Have a good evening, everyone.